The human heart can break in a million different ways, but mine shattered with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel, clean, deliberate, and calculated by the man who once promised to protect it. I'm standing in our bathroom right now, staring at my reflection in the mirror, but I don't recognize the woman looking back at me. Her left eye is swollen shut, a grotesque palette of purple and black. Her bottom lip is split open, still seeping blood that tastes like copper pennies. There are finger-shaped bruises wrapped around her throat like a necklace of violence. But it's her eyes, my eyes, that disturb me most. They're empty. Hollow. Like something essential has been scooped out and discarded. My name is Olivia Grant and I'm 27 years old. 3 years ago I thought I'd met my soulmate. His name was Adrian Wyatt, and he had the kind of smile that could melt glaciers and a voice smooth as expensive whiskey. He worked in corporate finance, drove a sleek black Audi, and always knew exactly what to say to make me feel like the only woman in the world. 6 months ago he hit me for the first time. It was a backhand across the face because I'd forgotten to pick up his dry cleaning. He'd apologized immediately, tears streaming down his handsome face, swearing it would never happen again. He bought me roses, 24 red ones, and took me to that Italian restaurant I loved on Riverside Avenue. I forgave him. God help me, I forgave him. But it did happen again. And again. And again. The hits became routine. Expected. A twisted sort of normal that I learned to navigate like a minefield. I stopped wearing short sleeves. Invested in heavy concealer. Made excuses to friends I barely saw anymore about why I couldn't meet for coffee or come to dinner parties. I became a ghost haunting my own life. Today is different though. Today everything changed. Today I discovered the truth about the monster I've been living with, and that truth has transformed my fear into something far more dangerous. Rage. It happened this morning. Adrian left for work in a rush, some emergency meeting with a client in the financial district. He'd been agitated, snapping at me over breakfast because his eggs weren't cooked properly. I'd apologized, scraped them into the trash, made new ones. He'd left without touching them, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. After he left, I did what I always did. Cleaned the kitchen, started the laundry, tried to make our apartment perfect so there'd be no reason for his anger later. But then I went into his study to water the plants and I saw it. His leather-bound diary sitting open on his mahogany desk. Adrian was obsessive about that diary. He kept it locked in his desk drawer, the key hidden somewhere I'd never found despite my curiosity over the years. He wrote in it every night before bed, hunched over the pages like a scholar protecting sacred texts. When I'd asked about it once early in our relationship, he'd smiled that devastating smile and said it was his processing tool, a place where he worked through his thoughts and feelings. I thought it was sweet, sensitive even, a man in touch with his emotions. But there it sat, unlocked, open, the pages covered in his precise handwriting. I should have walked away. Should have closed it, gone about my day, pretended I'd seen nothing. But something drew me forward. Some instinct, some whisper of self-preservation that my broken spirit hadn't entirely silenced. I sat down in his leather chair and began to read. The first few entries were mundane. Work frustrations. Observations about colleagues. Complaints about traffic. But then I found an entry from 6 months ago, dated the day after he first hit me. Did it today. Finally lost control and backhanded her across the face. Been wanting to do it for months. She's so annoying sometimes, always talking, always needing something. The look of shock on her face was priceless. She just stood there, stunned like a deer in headlights. But here's the thing, she forgave me. Just like I knew she would. I cried some crocodile tears, bought some flowers, and she melted like butter. This is easier than I thought. My blood turned to ice water in my veins. I kept reading, unable to stop, each entry worse than the last. Week 3 of the experiment. Pushed her down the stairs today. She thinks she tripped, but I timed it perfectly. Caught her at the landing so she wouldn't break anything serious. Don't need hospital questions, but enough to hurt. The bruises on her ribs are beautiful. Purple and yellow like a sunset. She's starting to flinch when I move too quickly. Good. Month 2. She's become so obedient. I barely have to raise my voice anymore before she's scrambling to fix whatever imagined offense I've conjured up. I've isolated her from most of her friends. They were too nosy, always asking questions. Her sister, Amanda, is still a problem, but I'm working on that. Tonight I'm going to tell Olivia that Amanda said some nasty things about her. Plant some seeds. watch them grow into a beautiful wall between them. My hands were shaking so badly the pages rustled like autumn leaves. Month 4. The power I feel is intoxicating. He's completely broken now. Walks on eggshells around me. I can see the fear in her eyes every time I come home, wondering what kind of mood I'll be in, what will set me off today. Sometimes I make things up just to watch her panic, trying to figure out what she did wrong. She's lost 12 pounds. Her hair is falling out from stress. She's a shell of the woman I met, and I did that. I created this. God, it feels good. But it was the most recent entry from just 2 days ago that made my world stop spinning entirely. Starting to get bored with Olivia. The challenge is gone. He's too broken, too easy. Been chatting with this bartender, Natalie, from that place on Kelvin Street. Young 23, full of life and fire. Reminds me of what Olivia used to be before I crushed her spirit. I think I'll start the process over. Natalie finishes her shift at midnight on Fridays. Think I'll be waiting for her next week, sweep her off her feet with the same routine that worked so well before. As for Olivia, well, I've been researching ways to make a death look like suicide. Depression, isolation, history of emotional instability. I've been building the perfect narrative for months. Maybe around the holidays? Yeah. Christmas Eve has a poetic ring to it. The tragic suicide of a depressed woman who couldn't handle the pressures of life. I'll play the devastated boyfriend beautifully. Might even cry at the funeral. The diary slipped from my numb fingers and fell to the floor with a sound like thunder. He was planning to kill me. Not in some fit of rage or accidental violence gone too far. This was premeditated. Calculated. He'd been conditioning me, breaking me down systematically, building a narrative that would make my death believable. I wasn't his girlfriend. I wasn't even his victim. I was his project. His experiment in psychological torture. And I was scheduled for termination on Christmas Eve. That was 6 hours ago. Now, standing in this bathroom looking at the evidence of his latest session, painted across my face, I feel something I haven't felt in months. I feel alive. The fear that's been my constant companion has transformed into something crystalline and sharp. Something deadly. Adrian Wyatt thinks he's broken me beyond repair. He thinks I'm a helpless, pathetic creature who will stand still while he wraps his hands around my throat for the final time. He's wrong. I've been drowning in darkness for so long that I'd forgotten what light looks like. But now I can see clearly. Now I understand exactly what I'm dealing with. And now, finally, I know what I have to do. Adrian wants to destroy me? Fine. But he's made one critical mistake. He's given me nothing left to lose. I reach into the medicine cabinet and pull out the concealer, beginning the familiar ritual of hiding the damage. But this time it's not out of shame or fear. This time I'm hiding evidence. This time I'm preparing for war. Because Adrian Wyatt wrote his own story in that diary. Every hit, every calculated cruelty, every twisted thought. He documented his crimes with the arrogance of a man who never believed he'd be caught. He's about to learn that the most dangerous woman in the world is one who's already dead inside. The diary is still sitting in his study where I left it, carefully arranged to look untouched. He doesn't know that I read it. Doesn't know that I photographed every single page with my phone before returning it to exactly the position I found it. He doesn't know that I've already been to 3 different law offices today, showing those photographs to attorneys behind closed doors. He doesn't know that I've reached out to Amanda, my sister, for the first time in months and told her everything. He doesn't know that I've opened a secret bank account and started transferring money in tiny increments he'll never notice. Most importantly, he doesn't know that I'm not planning to die on Christmas Eve. But someone is. My phone buzzes in my pocket. A text from Adrian, working late. Don't wait up. And make sure dinner is ready when I get home. We need to talk about your attitude this morning. My attitude. As if I'm the problem. As if I'm the monster in this story. I text back, of course. Sorry about this morning. I love you. The lies taste bitter on my tongue, but they're necessary. For now. I stare at my reflection one more time. At the bruises and the split lip and the broken woman looking back at me. But behind the damage, behind the fear, I can see something else now. Something Adrian never counted on. I can see survival. And I can see revenge. The game has changed. Adrian just doesn't know it yet. Before we continue, please write in the comment which country you are watching this video. We love knowing where our global family is tuning in from. And if this is your first time on this channel, please subscribe. Your support helps us bring even more epic revenge tales of life. Enjoy listening. The apartment felt different now. Every corner, every shadow, every piece of furniture had transformed from familiar to sinister. I walked through our living room that evening, seeing it with new eyes. The couch where Adrian had once wrapped his arms around me while we watched movies. I remembered now how he'd slowly started criticizing my choices, making me feel stupid for suggesting anything, until I'd stopped suggesting altogether. The kitchen where we'd cooked together during those early golden days. Now I could see the pattern, how he'd gradually taken over, telling me I was doing everything wrong, until I'd become his servant instead of his partner. Everything had been a trap. And I'd walked into it willingly, blinded by love and those perfect white teeth and the way he'd looked at me like I was precious. I prepared his dinner exactly the way he liked it. Steak, medium rare, with roasted vegetables and mashed potatoes. I set the table with our nice dishes, the ones we'd gotten as a housewarming gift from my parents 2 years ago. My parents who Adrian had convinced me were toxic and controlling. My parents who I hadn't spoken to in 8 months. Another wall he'd built around me. Another way he'd isolated his victim. Adrian came home at 9:30, his tie loosened, smelling of expensive cologne and something else. Perfume that definitely wasn't mine. Probably Natalie from Kelvin Street. Probably already starting the grooming process with his next victim. "Smells good," he said, shrugging off his jacket. He didn't kiss me hello. Hadn't in months. "How was your day?" "Quiet," I replied, keeping my voice soft and submissive, exactly how he'd trained me. "I cleaned the apartment and ran some errands." "Yeah. What kind of errands?" My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept my face neutral. "Just the dry cleaning and the grocery store. We were out of milk." He studied me for a moment, those blue eyes that I'd once found mesmerizing now looking reptilian and cold. Calculating. Searching for any sign of defiance or independence. I gave him none. "Good girl," he finally said, and the condescension in those 2 words made my stomach churn. But I smiled. Actually smiled. We ate dinner in silence. Adrian scrolled through his phone between bites, occasionally grunting in acknowledgement of something he'd read. I pushed food around my plate, forcing myself to eat even though everything tasted like sawdust. I needed my strength. Needed to stay healthy and alert for what was coming. "I've been thinking," Adrian said suddenly, setting down his fork. "About Christmas." My blood froze. Christmas Eve. The date he'd written in his diary. The date he'd scheduled my death. "What about it?" I managed to ask. "I think we should spend it here. Just the 2 of us. None of that family bullshit, none of your sister's drama. Just a quiet, peaceful Christmas. What do you think?" I knew what he was doing. Knew he was arranging the stage for my final performance. Isolated, alone, no witnesses. Perfect conditions for a tragic suicide. "That sounds nice," I whispered. "Really nice." He smiled, and there was something predatory in it. Something triumphant. He thought he was so clever. Thought he had everything planned out perfectly. "You look tired," he said, studying my face. The concealer had hidden most of the bruising, but my swollen eye was still visible. His work from this morning, delivered because I'd burned his toast. "Maybe you should go to bed early. Get some rest." Translation: get out of my sight. "I think I will," I said, standing and clearing the dishes. Long day. As I washed the dishes, I felt his eyes on me. Watching. Evaluating. Making sure I was still broken, still compliant, still his perfect victim. If only he knew. That night, I lay in our bed, though it had ceased being our bed months ago and had become his bed, where I was occasionally permitted to sleep if I'd been good, and listened to the sounds of Adrian moving around the apartment. The clink of his whiskey glass. The low murmur of his voice as he made a phone call in his study. Probably to Natalie. Probably spinning the same web of charm and lies that he'd used on me. I wanted to warn her. Wanted to call that bar on Kelvin Street and tell this young woman who had no idea what she was walking into that the handsome man with the expensive car and the devastating smile was actually a monster wearing human skin. But I couldn't. Not yet. Any action like that would tip my hand, would let Adrian know that I was aware, that I was planning something. I had to be patient. Had to be smart. Had to beat him at his own game. Around midnight, Adrian finally came to bed. He didn't touch me, didn't acknowledge me. Just rolled over with his back to me and fell asleep within minutes. The sleep of someone with no conscience, no guilt. I lay there in the darkness, listening to his breathing, thinking about all the things I'd read in that diary. All the calculated cruelty. All the sick pleasure he took in my pain. All the plans for my murder disguised as suicide. Tomorrow, I had an appointment with attorney Elizabeth Chong at 2 o'clock. She'd seemed genuinely horrified when I'd shown her the photographs of the diary entries, had immediately started talking about restraining orders and criminal charges. But I'd asked her to wait. Told her I needed more time to get certain things in order. What I hadn't told her was that I wasn't interested in restraining orders or prison sentences. I was interested in something far more permanent. The next morning, Adrian left for work in his usual rushed manner, barking orders about what he wanted for dinner, reminding me that he had a business trip next week and I needed to pack his suitcase properly. I nodded, agreed, played my role perfectly. The moment his car pulled out of the parking garage, I was on my phone. Amanda. My voice cracked when my sister answered. Can you come over? I'm already in my car, she replied immediately. Been waiting for you to call. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Amanda was my older sister by 4 years, a criminal defense attorney with a sharp mind and a sharper tongue. She'd never liked Adrian, had warned me early on that something about him felt off. But I'd been so deep in the love fog, so convinced that I'd found my person, that I'd dismissed her concerns as jealousy or overprotectiveness. I should have listened. When Amanda arrived, she took one look at my face. The concealer couldn't hide everything, and her expression went from concern to pure fury. I'm going to kill him, she said flatly. I'm going to literally kill him. Get in line, I replied, and despite everything, we both managed a grim smile. I showed her everything. The diary photographs. The documented abuse. The escalating violence. And finally the entry about Christmas Eve. About his plans to murder me and make it look like suicide. Amanda's face went through several shades of red before settling on a pale, dangerous calm. She was quiet for a long time, scrolling through the images on my phone, her jaw clenched so tight I could hear her teeth grinding. Olivia, she finally said, her voice carefully controlled, we need to go to the police. Right now. Today. This man is planning to murder you. This is. No, I interrupted. What do you mean no? I mean no police. Not yet. I have a different plan. Amanda stared at me and I watched realization slowly dawn in her eyes. Liv, whatever you're thinking. He's been destroying me piece by piece for months, I said, my voice cold and steady. He's taken everything from me. My confidence, my friends, my relationship with you and Mom and Dad. He's isolated me, terrorized me, beaten me, and now he's planning to kill me. And you know what would happen if we went to the police right now? They'd arrest him. Maybe they'd arrest him. Maybe a judge would grant a restraining order that he'd immediately violate. Maybe if we got really lucky he'd spend a few months in jail before getting out on bail. And then what? You think a piece of paper is going to stop a man who's been planning my murder for weeks? You think prison time is going to change him? So what's your alternative? Amanda asked, though I could see in her eyes that she already knew. I'm going to destroy him, I said simply. Completely and utterly. I'm going to take everything from him the way he took everything from me. And when I'm done, he's going to wish I'd just called the police. My sister studied me for a long moment. As a defense attorney, she should have been talking me down, convincing me to go through proper legal channels. But Amanda had seen too many cases like mine. Had watched too many abusers get slaps on the wrist, too many victims end up dead despite protection orders. What do you need from me? She finally asked. Over the next 3 weeks I became someone new. Or perhaps I became someone old. The Olivia who had existed before Adrian had systematically dismantled her. During the day while Adrian was at work I was busy. So very busy. First I met with Elizabeth Chong again, this time with Amanda by my side. We went through every photograph, every diary entry, building a timeline of abuse that was ironclad and indisputable. But instead of filing charges immediately, Elizabeth helped me with something else. If you want to destroy him financially and professionally, she said, spreading documents across her desk, we need to be strategic. Adrian works in finance, which means he's held to strict ethical standards. Any hint of this kind of behavior, documented abuse, planned murder, would end his career instantly. What are you suggesting? I asked. I'm suggesting we send anonymous packages to his employer, his clients, and every regulatory body that oversees his licenses. But we time it perfectly. We wait until you're safe, until you've disappeared, and then we detonate the bomb. By the time anyone tries to find you for questioning, you'll be unreachable. And Adrian will be left standing in the ruins of his life, unable to do anything about it. Amanda nodded approvingly. I like how you think. We spent hours preparing those packages. Copies of the diary entries, time-stamped and authenticated. Medical records that I'd finally requested from my doctor, documenting injuries that I'd explained away with lies about clumsiness. Photographs that Amanda had taken that morning, showing the bruises without concealer. Evidence. Mountains of it. But that was only part of the plan. I also opened a new email account that couldn't be traced to me and began researching Adrian's life outside our apartment. It was horrifyingly easy. People put everything online these days, and Adrian was no exception. I found his colleagues on social media. Found posts about office happy hours and weekend golf outings. Found photos of client dinners at expensive restaurants. Found business articles mentioning his name, praising his analytical skills and client relationships. All of it was about to come crashing down. I also found Natalie. She worked at a place called the Crimson Lounge on Kelvin Street, exactly as Adrian had written. Her social media showed a bright, smiling young woman who posted pictures of sunsets and inspirational quotes and photos with friends. She looked so full of life. So innocent. So much like I used to look. I created a fake profile and sent her a message. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would alert Adrian if he was monitoring her accounts. Just a simple warning from a concerned woman who'd seen her talking to a man named Adrian Wyatt. And did she know he had a girlfriend? Did she know she should be careful? It was a small thing, but it might plant a seed of doubt. Might make her more cautious. Might save her from becoming Adrian's next project. At home I played my role perfectly. The broken, submissive girlfriend. I cooked his meals. I kept the apartment spotless. I apologized for imagined offenses. I flinched at his raised voice and his sudden movements. But inside I was steel. Adrian hit me twice more during those 3 weeks. Once because I'd bought the wrong brand of coffee. Once because I'd laughed at something on TV and he'd decided I was laughing at him. Each time I documented everything. Took photos. Wrote down the exact time and circumstances. Added it to the mountain of evidence that was going to bury him. The violence was escalating, exactly as the diary had predicted. He was getting impatient, I realized. Eager for Christmas Eve to arrive. Eager to move on to his next victim and start his sick game all over again. You've seemed different lately, Adrian said one evening in mid-December. We were sitting on the couch, him watching some financial news program while I pretended to read a book. Quieter. My heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice level. I've just been tired. Sorry if I've been. No, it's good, he interrupted, and when I looked up he was smiling. You've been very good lately. Very obedient. I appreciate it. The way he said obedient, like I was a dog he'd successfully trained, made my skin crawl. But I smiled back. I just want you to be happy, I said, and it was probably the most honest thing I'd said to him in weeks. I did want him to be happy. Wanted him to feel secure and confident. Wanted him to believe everything was going according to his plan. Because the higher he climbed, the harder he'd fall. I am happy, he said, reaching over to pat my hand. The touch made my flesh creep, but I didn't pull away. Things are good at work. My Christmas bonus is going to be substantial. And you and I. He squeezed my hand, his grip just tight enough to hurt. We're going to have a very special Christmas. Just the two of us. There was the confirmation. He was still planning it. Still preparing to murder me in just over a week. I can't wait, I whispered. That night I finalized my plans with Amanda. On December 23rd, I told her over the phone, speaking quietly even though Adrian was passed out drunk in the bedroom, I'm leaving. I'll pack a bag during the day when he's at work and hide it in the spare bedroom closet. That evening I'll tell him I'm going to the pharmacy to pick up his prescription. You know, the sleeping pills he takes. I'll drive straight to the address you gave me. The safe house is ready, Amanda confirmed. It's under a fake name, paid for in cash. No paper trail. You can stay there as long as you need to. And the packages? Will be sent to every relevant party on December 24th. Christmas Eve. The same day he planned to kill you. Poetic justice. What about you? I asked. He'll come looking for me. He'll definitely suspect you helped me. Let him try, Amanda said grimly. I've already filed documentation with my law firm about Adrian's threats against you. If anything happens to me, if I so much as stub my toe, there's an envelope that gets opened and delivered directly to the police. He won't touch me. He's going to be so angry, I said softly. When he realizes I'm gone, when all those packages arrive, when his whole life implodes. Good, Amanda replied. Let him be angry. Let him be destroyed. He deserves every bit of what's coming to him. He was right. But there was one more thing I needed to do. One final piece of the puzzle that would ensure Adrian Wyatt got exactly what he deserved. 2 days before my planned escape, I made an appointment with a psychiatrist. Dr. Helen Morrison was a kind woman in her 50s with gentle eyes and a calm demeanor. She listened as I poured out my story. The abuse, the isolation, the fear, the diary entries, the plan to murder me on Christmas Eve. She documented everything. Every word. Every detail. And when I was finished, she sat back in her chair and looked at me with something like awe. Ms. Grant, she said carefully, you've been through something horrific. The fact that you're sitting here coherent and planning your escape is remarkable. Most people in your situation would be completely traumatized, unable to function. I am traumatized, I said honestly. But I'm also angry. And anger is keeping me focused. What you're describing, the systematic abuse, the documentation in the diary, the premeditated murder plan, this is beyond domestic violence. This is a psychopathic individual who views you as an object for his entertainment. Someone with no empathy, no conscience. I know. And you understand that when you leave, when those documents become public, he's going to feel wounded. Exposed. Men like Adrian don't handle that well. He may try to find you. May try to finish what he started. I finished. I know. That's why I need you to document everything. I need a professional opinion stating that I was of sound mind, that I wasn't exaggerating or being dramatic, that the threat to my life was real and imminent. Because if something happens to me, if he finds me, I need people to know it wasn't suicide. It wasn't an accident. It was murder. Dr. Morrison nodded slowly. I'll prepare a comprehensive report. And Ms. Grant? I hope you disappear so completely that Adrian Wyatt never finds you. That's the plan, I said. December 23rd arrived cold and gray, the kind of winter day where the sky looks like it's pressing down on the earth. I woke up before Adrian, my heart hammering with a mixture of terror and anticipation. Today was the day. I made breakfast like always. Coffee exactly how he liked it, eggs over easy, wheat toast with butter on the side. Adrian came into the kitchen dressed in one of his expensive suits, smelling of cologne and hair product. Big day at the office? I asked, keeping my voice light and interested. Wrapping up some year-end reports, he said, scrolling through his phone while he ate. Should be home by 7. We can have a quiet night in, just relax before Christmas. Before Christmas. Before Christmas Eve. Before the day he planned to wrap his hands around my throat and squeeze until I stopped breathing, then arrange my body to look like I'd hung myself. Sounds perfect, I said. After he left, I moved quickly. The suitcase I'd packed was already hidden in the spare bedroom closet. Clothes, toiletries, important documents, the flash drive with copies of everything. I carried it out to my car and put it in the trunk, covering it with a blanket. I walked through the apartment one last time, looking at this place that had been both my home and my prison. I thought about saying goodbye, about having some kind of emotional moment, but I felt nothing. This apartment held no good memories anymore. Adrian had poisoned every corner of it. I left a note on the kitchen counter. Short and sweet. Went to pick up your prescription. Back soon. Oh. Then I got in my car and drove away from that life forever. The safe house Amanda had arranged was a small cottage on the outskirts of the city, tucked away on a quiet street that barely had any traffic. She was waiting for me when I arrived, along with 2 other people I didn't recognize. This is Marcus and Joy, Amanda introduced them. They're private investigators who specialize in domestic violence cases. They're going to help make sure Adrian can't find you. Marcus was a tall black man with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Joy was a petite Asian woman who looked like she could probably kill someone with her pinky finger. We're going to sweep you for any tracking devices, Joy explained. Phone, car, clothes, everything. We're also going to set up security cameras around the property and show you some basic self-defense moves. Just in case. You think he'll find me? I asked. We think he'll try, Marcus replied. Men like Adrian don't let go easily. But we're going to make it as difficult as possible for him. They were thorough. They found 2 tracking devices, one in my car hidden under the wheel well and one sewn into the lining of my winter coat. The discovery made my skin crawl. How long had those been there? How long had Adrian been tracking my every movement? He's been monitoring you, Joy confirmed, examining the devices. Probably has been for months. These are sophisticated, not something you pick up at a regular electronics store. He put money and effort into keeping tabs on you. What do we do with them? I asked. Marcus grinned. We're going to have a little fun. Give me a few hours. While they worked, I sat with Amanda in the cottage's tiny kitchen, drinking tea that I didn't taste. The packages go out tomorrow morning, Amanda said. First thing. I've timed it so they'll all arrive at various offices right around the same time. His employer. The Financial Regulatory Board. His biggest clients. Even sent one to the local news station's investigative team. And the police? That package includes everything, plus Dr. Morrison's psychiatric evaluation and the recommendation that Adrian Wyatt be considered an immediate danger to you and potentially to others. They'll have no choice but to investigate. What about Natalie? I asked. The bartender he's been grooming? Already handled. I had a lawyer friend send her a detailed, anonymous letter warning her about Adrian, including some of the diary entries. She knows what she's dealing with now. I nodded, feeling a small weight lift. At least I'd done something to protect his next intended victim. Marcus came back into the kitchen holding up the 2 tracking devices. Okay, I've reactivated these and attached them to a long-haul truck heading south. If Adrian checks his tracking app, it'll show your car is on Interstate 85 heading toward Florida. By the time he figures out you're not actually in that truck, we'll have had time to set up more security measures here. That's brilliant, Amanda said admiringly. We do what we can, Marcus replied with a modest shrug. Now, Olivia, we need to talk about your phone. What about it? Adrian could have installed spyware on it. Even if you don't see any obvious apps, he could be monitoring your calls, texts, location. We need to destroy this phone and get you a new one. A completely clean device that he has no way of accessing. The thought of Adrian reading my messages, listening to my calls, tracking my every move made me feel violated all over again. But I handed over my phone without hesitation. Joy took it and, with remarkable efficiency, smashed it with a hammer and then dropped the pieces into a bag. We'll dispose of these in 3 different locations, she explained. No way to recover any data. They gave me a new phone with a new number. The only contacts in it were Amanda, Marcus, and Joy. That evening, as darkness fell over the city, I sat in the cottage's living room and imagined Adrian coming home to our empty apartment. Calling my name. Finding my note. Calling my phone and getting a number-disconnected message. I imagined his confusion turning to anger. Anger turning to rage. And tomorrow, when those packages arrived, I imagined that rage becoming something even darker. Good. Adrian Wyatt's world began to collapse at precisely 9:15 on Christmas Eve morning. I know because Amanda was monitoring his social media and had friends at his office keeping her updated. She'd called me with each new development, her voice tinged with satisfaction. The package just arrived at his office, she reported. His boss called him in for an emergency meeting. 30 minutes later, he's been suspended pending investigation. They've locked him out of his computer and escorted him from the building. Olivia, his face. My contact said he looked absolutely insane. An hour after that, his biggest client just terminated their contract. The regulatory board has opened a formal investigation. It's all falling apart. I should have felt satisfied. Triumphant. This was what I'd planned, what I'd worked toward. But instead I felt a strange numbness. Like I was watching all of this happen to someone else. He's going to come looking for me, I said. Let him try, Amanda replied. Marcus and Joy are there with you. The police have been notified. You're safe. But I didn't feel safe. Adrian called Amanda's phone 47 times that day. Left increasingly unhinged voicemails that went from angry to pleading to threatening and back to angry again. Where is she? his voice screamed through Amanda's voicemail, which she'd put on speaker so I could hear. I know you have her, Amanda. I know you put her up to this. Tell that bitch that she's ruined everything, but I'm going to find her. I'm going to. The message cut off as he apparently threw his phone. Save all of those, I said quietly. More evidence. Already done, Amanda assured me. As the day wore on, more dominoes fell. The news station ran a story about a prominent financial advisor under investigation for alleged domestic violence and potential murder conspiracy. They didn't name Adrian yet, but anyone who knew him would recognize the details. His photo was on the company website after all. His professional reputation was in ruins. His career was over. His clients had abandoned him. His colleagues were distancing themselves as fast as they could type LinkedIn messages. Everything he'd built, every carefully constructed piece of his perfect life, was crumbling to dust. And he knew exactly who was responsible. Marcus's phone buzzed around 6 that evening. He looked at it, frowned, and then pulled up an app one didn't recognize. He went to your apartment, Marcus said, showing me a screen with a map and a blinking dot. Stayed there for about an hour. Just left. And now, he's heading toward the interstate. Looks like he's following the tracker signal. Good, I said. Let him chase ghosts. But Joy was shaking her head, her expression troubled. He's not following it straight south like we expected. Wait. She grabbed her own phone, pulling up something. He's detouring. Taking back roads. Like he knows something's off and he's trying to figure it out. He's smart, I said. I told you he was smart. Not that smart, Marcus replied. He's still following the signal. It'll keep him busy for at least a day, maybe 2. But my instincts, those survival instincts that Adrian had tried so hard to destroy, were screaming at me. Something felt wrong. Amanda, I said carefully, when you sent those packages, did any of them mention this location? Of course not. Nobody knows where you are except the 4 of us. What about property records? Is your name on anything? Amanda's face went pale. I paid cash. Used a shell company name. But, the utilities. Oh God, the utilities are still in my name. I didn't think. I thought since it was in a different city he wouldn't. He's a financial analyst, I interrupted. His entire job is finding connections between seemingly unrelated pieces of information. If he looked up your property records, your utility bills, he could. Marcus was already moving, checking the security camera feeds on his laptop. Nobody's here yet. But we should relocate you. Right now. No, I said, and the certainty in my voice surprised even me. No more running. Olivia, Amanda started. I've been running from him for months, I said, standing up. Running from his anger, his fists, his control. Even when I was still living with him, I was running. Hiding. Trying to be small enough, quiet enough, perfect enough that maybe he wouldn't hurt me. And where did that get me? He was still planning to kill me. So what are you suggesting? Joy asked, and there was something in her eyes that suggested she already knew. I'm suggesting we let him come, I said. But this time I'm ready for him. This time I'm not his victim. Marcus and Joy exchanged glances. That's actually not a terrible idea, Marcus said slowly. If we control the environment, if we're prepared, we can document everything. Have multiple cameras rolling. Get a confession on tape. That's evidence no court could ignore. Are you sure about this? Amanda asked me, her lawyer brain clearly warring with her protective sister instincts. Olivia, he's dangerous. He was planning to murder you. If something goes wrong, then I die, I said simply. But at least I die fighting back instead of cowering in a corner waiting for him to find me. And at least he goes to prison for it. The room was silent for a long moment. Okay, Joy finally said. Hey. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. Marcus, start setting up cameras. I want every angle covered. Amanda, you need to leave. If this goes bad, we need you safe and able to testify. I'm not leaving my sister. You are, I interrupted gently. Because you're the one who has all the evidence. All the documentation. Something happens to me, you're the one who makes sure Adrian pays for it. You're my insurance policy, Amanda. My sister's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. I love you, Liv. I love you too, I replied. Now go. And don't come back until this is over. After Amanda left, Marcus and Joy transformed the cottage into something between a surveillance hub and a trap. Cameras in every room, every corner. Audio recording devices. Motion sensors. They even rigged the front door with a silent alarm that would alert the police the moment it opened. "The cops will take at least 15 minutes to get here," Marcus warned. "Probably closer to 20 given the location. You need to keep him talking that long. Keep him calm enough that he doesn't, well, you know." "I know," I said. "I've been managing his moods for months. I can do this." Joy pressed something into my hand. It was a small canister of pepper spray. "Last resort," she said. "If he gets physical, if you think you're in immediate danger, use this and run. Don't worry about the cameras or the confession. Just survive." "I will," I promised. They wanted to stay, to hide in the cottage and be there if things went bad. But I refused. If Adrian saw any cars, any signs that I wasn't alone, he'd never come in. Never confess. This had to look like I was vulnerable and isolated. It had to look like his original plan could still work. "We'll be in a car 2 blocks away," Marcus said as they prepared to leave. "The silent alarm will notify us the second he enters. We'll be here in under 3 minutes." "That's cutting it close," I observed. "Life's a risk," Joy replied with a grim smile. "But you're braver than you think, Olivia. I've worked with a lot of abuse survivors. Most of them never get to this point. Never get to face their abuser on their own terms." "I'm not brave," I said. "I'm just tired of being afraid." After they left, I sat in the cottage's small living room and waited. The Christmas lights from neighboring houses cast colorful shadows through the windows. Somewhere, families were gathering, exchanging gifts, celebrating the holiday. And I was waiting for my would-be murderer to come kill me. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. He just entered the city. "Hey, maybe 30 minutes. Are you ready?" I texted back, "Ready." But was I? My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might bruise my ribs from the inside. My hands were shaking. My mouth was dry. Every survival instinct I had was screaming at me to run, to hide, to do anything except sit here and wait for Adrian Wyatt. But I didn't run. I'd done enough running. Instead, I went to the kitchen and made myself tea. Chamomile for calm. I sat on the couch with the warm mug in my hands and thought about everything that had led to this moment. 3 years of my life. 3 years of gradually losing myself to a man who saw me as nothing more than a toy to break. 3 years of believing that love meant sacrifice, that if I just tried harder, was better, more perfect, that he would become the man I'd fallen for again. But that man had never existed. The charming, wonderful Adrian from our early days had been a mask. A carefully constructed facade designed to lure in victims. Behind that mask had always been this creature. This thing without empathy or conscience that derived pleasure from causing pain. I'd loved a lie. And that lie had nearly destroyed me. But here's what Adrian didn't understand, what he couldn't comprehend with his broken, twisted psychology. By trying to break me, he'd actually forged me into something stronger. Every hit, every cruel word, every calculated humiliation had been a hammer strike on metal, shaping me into a blade. And tonight that blade was going to cut. At 8:47 p.m. the motion sensors picked up activity outside. Marcus's text came through. "He's here. Black Audi just parked down the street. Stay calm. Stay smart. We're coming." I set down my tea and stood up, smoothing my shirt. I'd chosen my outfit carefully. The blue sweater Adrian liked, jeans, hair down the way he preferred. I looked soft. Vulnerable. Exactly how he expected me to look. But in my pocket, my fingers closed around the pepper spray. I heard footsteps on the porch. Slow. Deliberate. Like he was savoring this moment. Then the doorknob turned. I hadn't locked it, another deliberate choice. I needed him to feel confident, in control. The door swung open. Adrian Wyatt stepped into the cottage, and for a moment we just stared at each other. He looked terrible. His usually perfectly styled hair was disheveled. His expensive suit was wrinkled. His eyes were wild, rimmed with red like he hadn't slept. This was Adrian without his mask, without his careful control. This was the monster finally revealing itself completely. "Hello, Adrian," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "You bitch," he said softly, closing the door behind him. "You absolute fucking bitch. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I know exactly what I've done," I replied. "I've destroyed you." He laughed. A harsh, broken sound. You read it, didn't you? My diary. That's the only way you could have known all of that. I thought I'd locked it, but I must have been careless one morning and you... He took a step closer. You invaded my privacy. You had no right. The sheer audacity of that statement, that somehow I was the one in the wrong, would have been funny if it weren't so horrifying. No right. I repeated. You were planning to murder me, Adrian. Christmas Eve. Tomorrow. You were going to kill me and make it look like suicide. I was putting you out of your misery, he said, and he actually seemed to believe it. You were so pathetic, Olivia. So broken and sad. I was doing you a favor. By strangling me? It would have been quick. Painless. I'm not a monster. I couldn't help it, I laughed. Actually laughed. You're not a monster? Adrian, you documented every moment of my abuse in that diary like it was a science experiment. You got pleasure from my pain. You isolated me from everyone who cared about me. You hit me, pushed me downstairs, wrapped your hands around my throat just to watch me panic. And you're not a monster. His face darkened. I gave you everything. A beautiful apartment. Financial security. All you had to do was be grateful, be obedient, and you couldn't even do that. Obedient, I repeated. Like a dog. Like a good girlfriend, he corrected. But you had to go and ruin it. Had to send those packages, destroy my career, turn everyone against me. And for what? Because I was a little rough with you sometimes? Because I had high standards. You were planning to kill me, Adrian. That's not high standards. That's murder. And what you did to me isn't murder? He shot back, his voice rising. You killed my career. My reputation. My entire life. Everything I worked for, gone because you're too weak to handle a little discipline. He was getting agitated, pacing now. This was the dangerous part. The part where his control slipped and the violence emerged. Why are you here, Adrian? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. What do you want? He stopped pacing and looked at me with those cold blue eyes. I want you to fix this. Call everyone. Tell them it was all lies. That you made it up because you were angry. That I never hurt you, never threatened you. And if I don't? Then I finish what I started, he said simply. No witnesses this time. No diary entries. No evidence. Just a tragic accident. A woman who faked abuse accusations and then, overcome with guilt, did something desperate. There was the confession. The threat. The admission that he'd planned this all along. I hoped the cameras were catching every word. You can't actually think you'll get away with that, I said. People know I'm in danger from you. If I turn up dead, they'll think you killed yourself, he interrupted. Or that you ran away and met with an accident. Or disappeared to avoid the consequences of your false accusations. There are so many possibilities, Olivia. So many ways this could go that don't end with me in prison. He moved closer and I forced myself not to back away. Not to show fear. You were supposed to be easy, Adrian continued, his voice taking on a strange, almost wistful quality. A simple project. Break you down, build the narrative, end it cleanly. Move on to Natalie, she would have been fun, all that fire. But you had to complicate things. I'm sorry I didn't cooperate with my own murder, I said dryly. His hand shot out and grabbed my throat. Not squeezing, not yet, but the threat was clear. You think you're so smart, he hissed, his face inches from mine. You think you've won. But you're here alone and I'm holding your life in my hand right now. Where's your victory, Olivia? Where's your big triumph? Right here, I said, and I could see the confusion in his eyes. Every word you've said tonight has been recorded. Multiple cameras, multiple audio devices. Everything about your diary, about your plans to kill me, about your confession to abuse. All of it documented. The confusion turned to shock, then to rage. His hand tightened on my throat. You're lying. Look around, I managed to choke out. Look at the corners. The cameras. You walked right into a trap, Adrian. Just like I walked into yours 3 years ago. He released my throat and spun around and I watched him spot the cameras. One in the corner by the ceiling. One hidden in the bookshelf. One behind the picture frame on the wall. His face went through several shades of red before settling on a purple so dark it looked almost black. You think this changes anything? He snarled. You think some recordings will save you? I'll destroy them. I'll destroy you. Oh. The front door burst open. Marcus came through first, followed by Joy and 4 police officers in full tactical gear. Adrian whirled around, completely surrounded, his hands still raised from where he'd been reaching for me. "Adrian Wyatt," one of the officers said, "you're under arrest for assault, terroristic threats, and conspiracy to commit murder." They were on him in seconds, forcing him to the ground, cuffing his hands behind his back. He fought. Of course he fought, screaming obscenities, threatening lawsuits, demanding his lawyer. But it was over. I stood there, watching the man who had terrorized me for months being dragged out of the cottage, and I waited to feel something. Relief maybe. Satisfaction. Victory. Dad, I just felt tired. "You okay?" Marcus asked, approaching carefully. "My throat hurts," I said, touching where Adrian had grabbed me. "But yeah. I'm okay." "That was the bravest, stupidest thing I've ever seen," Joy said, but she was smiling. "You got him. Got everything on camera. His confession, the threats, the assault. No court in the world will let him walk away from this." "How long?" I asked. "How long will he go to prison?" "With the diary evidence, Dr. Morrison's evaluation, your testimony, and tonight's footage?" Marcus considered. 20 years minimum. Maybe more if the DA really pushes for it. 20 years. Adrian would be nearly 50 when he got out. His career would be over. His reputation destroyed. His carefully constructed life in ruins. Good. 3 months later, I sat in a courtroom and watched Adrian Wyatt be sentenced to 25 years in prison. His lawyers had tried everything. Argued that the diary was fiction, that the recordings were entrapment, that I had provoked him. But the evidence was overwhelming. The testimony from Dr. Morrison, from Amanda, from Natalie the bartender who came forward to say Adrian had indeed been grooming her with the same tactics he'd used on me. The prosecution even brought in 2 other women, ex-girlfriends from before me, who had similar stories of escalating abuse and sudden violent breakups. Adrian had done this before. I wasn't his first victim, but I would be his last. When the judge read the sentence, Adrian's face crumpled. He actually cried, real tears this time, not the crocodile tears he'd used to manipulate me. He looked at me across the courtroom and I met his gaze without flinching. I wanted him to see that I wasn't broken anymore. Wasn't afraid anymore. I had survived him. After the sentencing, Amanda and I went to a small cafe near the courthouse. We ordered coffee and pastries we didn't really want and sat in silence for a while, just processing everything. "How do you feel?" she finally asked. "Empty," I admitted. "I thought I'd feel victorious or relieved or something. But I just feel empty." "That's normal," Amanda said gently. "You've been running on adrenaline and rage for months. Now that it's over, there's a void where all that intensity used to be. What do I do with the void?" "Fill it with something better," she replied. "With healing. With therapy. With rebuilding your life the way you want it, not the way anyone else tells you it should be." I nodded slowly. "I've been thinking about that. About who I want to be now that I'm not defined by surviving Adrian. And I want to go back to school," I said. "Before Adrian, I was studying psychology. I want to finish my degree. Maybe work with abuse survivors. Help them find their way out before it gets as bad as it got for me." Amanda smiled. "I think that's perfect." Over the following months, I did exactly that. I enrolled in classes. Started therapy with a wonderful counselor named Dr. James Rivera who specialized in trauma recovery. Slowly, carefully, I reconnected with my parents and old friends, rebuilding bridges that Adrian had burned. It wasn't easy. I had nightmares. Panic attacks. Days where getting out of bed felt impossible. The scars Adrian had left weren't just physical. They ran deep into my psyche, and healing them took time and patience and work. But I did the work. I also kept in touch with Natalie, the bartender. We met for coffee once and she told me that my warning had probably saved her life. She'd started researching Adrian after getting my message and had found other concerning information. When he'd shown up at the bar with flowers and his practiced charm, she'd politely but firmly told him she wasn't interested. "He looked so angry," she said, shivering at the memory. "Like I'd personally insulted him just by saying no. I could see it in his eyes. This rage just simmering underneath. If I hadn't known what he was really like, if you hadn't warned me, I probably would have thought it was just a bad day. I would have given him a chance." "I'm glad you didn't," I said sincerely. "Me too. And I'm sorry for what he did to you." "Don't be sorry," I replied. Just be safe. Be smart. Trust your instincts. If something feels off about someone, it probably is. 1 year after Adrian's sentencing, I did something I never thought I'd be brave enough to do. I went back to the apartment. It had been sold after Adrian went to prison. His assets ceased to pay for victim restitution and legal fees. The new owners had completely redecorated, but I could still see traces of the life I'd lived there. The kitchen where I'd cooked countless meals in fear. The living room where I'd walked on eggshells. The bedroom where I'd lain awake wondering if that night would be the night he finally killed me. But standing there, looking at those spaces filled with someone else's furniture and someone else's life, I realized something important. Those memories didn't have power over me anymore. Adrian didn't have power over me anymore. I had taken it back. All of it. My power, my voice, my life. That evening, I sat down and wrote in a journal. My own diary, not a record of someone else's cruelty but a chronicle of my healing. And on the first page I wrote this. My name is Olivia Grant. I am a survivor of domestic abuse. I was stalked, beaten, terrorized, and nearly murdered by someone who claimed to love me. But I fought back. I gathered evidence. I made a plan. I survived. Adrian Wyatt tried to destroy me, but instead he created something he never anticipated. A woman who knows her own strength. A woman who understands that survival isn't passive. Sometimes it's calculated. Sometimes it's fierce. Sometimes it's about turning the tables and making sure the monster gets exactly what he deserves. I'm not grateful for what happened to me. I wouldn't wish this experience on anyone. But I'm grateful for who I've become because of it. For the strength I found. For the people who stood by me. For the future I'm building on my own terms. This is my story. Not the one Adrian wrote in his diary, but the real one. The one where the victim becomes the victor. Where the hunted becomes the hunter. Where justice isn't just a concept but a reality. And it's only the beginning. I closed the journal and looked out the window of my new apartment. A space that was entirely mine, filled with things I'd chosen, decorated in colors I liked, in a neighborhood where nobody knew my history or my story unless I chose to share it. The city lights twinkled in the darkness, and somewhere out there, Adrian Wyatt was sitting in a prison cell, facing the consequences of his actions. He'd wanted to destroy me, but in the end I'd destroyed him. And I'd rebuilt myself. That's real power. That's real victory. Not revenge for revenge's sake, but justice. Accountability. The knowledge that monsters can be stopped if you're brave enough to face them. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. Dinner this weekend? Mom and Dad want to see you. I smiled and typed back, I'd love that. Because that's what Adrian could never take from me, no matter how hard he tried. My capacity to love. To trust. To heal. To move forward. I survived. I fought back. I won. And every day I wake up free from his shadow is its own kind of perfect revenge. The diary he wrote was meant to chronicle my destruction. Instead, it became the evidence that destroyed him. Sometimes the pen truly is mightier than the sword. And sometimes, the broken woman in the mirror transforms into something the monster never saw coming. A survivor with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. I am Olivia Grant. This is my story. And I'm just getting started.